It started with taxes. I wasn't looking for anything. Just trying to make sense of our filing status and deductions. The kind of tedious chore Kayla always handed off to me without hesitation, saying she had too much on her plate. She probably did meetings, presentations, networking events. She was always moving lately. Always somewhere else. I was at the kitchen table with our old shared laptop, the one we used back when things were simpler, before the promotions, the flights, and the late-night strategy sessions. I had just finished entering our W-2 info when a little email alert slid across the bottom right corner of the screen. Subject line, "You were the fire of that night." At first, I thought it was spam. Maybe a promotional email from some boutique brand Kayla subscribed to. But then I saw the attachment, a JPEG file modestly named img_3842.jpg, and my hand froze on the mouse. Something in me just knew. I clicked. And that was it. That's when the first domino fell. The picture was sharp, like it had been taken with care. Not a blurry club **T or a chaotic selfie. It was framed. In ** mate. Kayla was front and center in a red dress that clung to her like it had been designed just for her curves. Her makeup was heavier than usual, bold lips, smoky eyes. She looked stunning. Beautiful even. But not like the woman I knew. Not like my wife. She sat on the lap of a man I had never seen before. His face was angled just out of full view, but his body language told me everything. His hand gripped her thigh, not casually, not politely. Like she belonged there. Her smile was soft, familiar, and tilted toward him, not the camera. Behind them was the glow of an upscale restaurant, dim lights, white tablecloths, a bottle of red wine already halfway gone. The kind of place where waiters hover and reservations book weeks in advance. I checked the timestamp. 2 weeks ago. The exact night she told me she'd be at a professional networking event in Denver. She'd flown out that morning, kissed me goodbye at 5:30 a.m. and promised to be back by the weekend. Said she'd be too tired to FaceTime, but she'd text when she could. My stomach turned. I stared at the image, trying to rationalize. Maybe it was old? A joke? Something innocent and out of context? But even as I tried to build the defense in my mind, I could feel the collapse already happening. The way her hand rested on his chest. The way his other arm curled around her waist like it wasn't the first time. The way she smiled, not surprised, not awkward, but warm. Comfortable. Like she belonged there. I felt heat crawl up my neck. My hand trembled slightly as I closed the photo, then opened her inbox. She never logged out. I used to think that was a sign of trust. The email was from a sender labeled A. Baxter. No first name. No subject history. Just that single message with the photo and one line, "You were the fire of that night." I didn't open the thread. I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I sat there, frozen, feeling like the world had tilted slightly on its axis. The kitchen lights buzzed faintly above me. The hum of the fridge filled the silence. Everything around me was normal, untouched. But nothing felt real. When Kayla came home later that evening, I was still at the table. She dropped her keys in the bowl by the door and walked into the kitchen with her usual air, polished, professional, tired in that performative way that made her seem indispensable. "Long day," she sighed, kicking off her heels. "What's for dinner?" I didn't respond. I just turned the laptop toward her. The screen was still on the email. She blinked. "What's this?" she asked, as if she just stumbled across a traffic ticket. "You tell me." She leaned closer, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of panic in her eyes. But it passed so quickly, I questioned whether I imagined it. "Oh," she said, and actually chuckled. "That? God, I forgot about that. It's nothing." "Nothing?" She straightened. "A joke. Some guy from the event. It was a group dinner, and someone dared me to take that photo for a team-building scavenger hunt. You know how those things go." My eyes stayed on hers. "So you were on his lap, for a dare?" She rolled her eyes like I was being ridiculous. "It's all harmless. You think I'd do something like that behind your back?" I wanted to believe her. I wanted to so badly. But the crack had already formed. There was something in her voice that wasn't right. Not the words, those were polished, confident, well-rehearsed, but the tone. It was too smooth, too dismissive. Like she'd had this defense ready. I stared at her for another moment before saying quietly, "You didn't even ask how I got the photo." She paused. Then calmly, she picked up her purse. "I'm going to shower. Let me know when you're ready to stop being paranoid." And just like that, she walked out. No explanation. No apology. Not even a trace of concern. I sat alone at the table. The screen now dark. My reflection staring back at me from the black glass. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay next to her, listening to her breathing, wondering if she was dreaming about someone else. Her back was to me. It always was lately. I thought about the red dress, the way she looked in it, how she had come home that weekend with no mention of dinner, no stories about networking. Just a vague complaint about the hotel pillows and how she wished I had sent the nice headphones with her. I thought about how she used to tell me everything, how our texts used to be full of inside jokes, silly emojis, mundane updates. Now it was just logistics, schedules, lists, and silence. I thought about the way she made me feel, like the burden of our life was something she carried for my benefit, like she was constantly putting up with me, like I wasn't quite enough. But I had believed in her, in us, and now I wasn't even sure I believed what I saw. That email became a mirror I couldn't unsee. It followed me the next morning as I brushed my teeth. It echoed in my chest as I poured coffee. I could hear it in her voice, every time she spoke to me like I was an obligation, a background character in the story of her real life. She had always been ambitious, driven. I loved that about her. But lately, it felt like she was driven away from me, not toward something, just away. And I thought maybe this wasn't about the picture. Maybe it was just the first visible crack in a foundation that had been quietly eroding for years. Still, I couldn't shake the image. That hand on her thigh, that smile, the red dress I never got to see in person. I didn't bring it up again. Not the email, not the dress, not the man. I didn't ask follow-up questions. Didn't dig through her phone, didn't scroll through the rest of her inbox. Not yet. But something had changed. In me, around me, like the lighting in our house had shifted just slightly cooler, grayer. A version of reality I hadn't noticed before started sharpening into focus. The picture, once seen, had etched itself into everything. I began to remember things I had brushed aside. Her phone, for starters. It used to live on the kitchen counter, always half-charged and buzzing. Now it was either in her hand or face down, always locked with a new 6-digit code she never mentioned changing. Notifications were silenced. Even when it rang, she'd glance at it, then turn it off without answering. Spam, she'd mutter. Then there were the late nights. First, I believed her. The project deadlines, the tight turnarounds, the new VP who loved scheduling 7 p.m. wrap-ups. But the excuses started multiplying, overlapping, becoming less believable. I once asked her why she didn't just work remotely. She blinked, then said the files she needed were on a secure drive at the office. I didn't know enough about her job to challenge her. But our daughter did. Why does mommy always come home after bedtime? She asked one night while brushing her teeth. Did she stop liking us? I knelt beside her, toothbrush clutched in her tiny fingers, and lied. No, sweetheart. She's just working hard. For us. But I wasn't so sure anymore. Her wardrobe had changed, too. Kayla always had a sharp sense of style, but recently it felt deliberate. Like a costume. Tighter dresses. Heels that clicked across the floor like punctuation. Lipstick that left faint traces on coffee mugs she no longer finished. I noticed perfume. Floral, bold, expensive, lingering long after she'd left a room. Once, our son climbed into her lap for a hug before school and pulled back quickly. You smell like someone else, he said, wrinkling his nose. She laughed. I tried a new shampoo, silly. He didn't laugh with her. Neither did I. Our kids started drawing pictures without her in them. First, I chalked it up to chance. Then it happened again. And again. Crayon versions of our family, just the three of us, me, our son, our daughter, and sometimes our dog. But never her. She didn't even notice. Kayla had always been glued to her calendar, color-coding appointments and syncing schedules down to the minute. But now she forgot things. Dance recitals, PTA meetings. Even our anniversary slipped past without a word. She blamed email filters. I said nothing. What was the point? I watched her more closely now, not out of curiosity but out of necessity. Her absence had become something alive, loud in its quietness. She was still here, technically. She filled the space, moved through the rooms, left her half-empty coffee cups everywhere. But she was detached, as if someone had swapped out my wife for a highly convincing replica. One programmed to say all the right things without meaning any of them. There were moments she'd sit on the couch next to me and scroll her phone for half an hour without once looking in my direction. And if I asked a question, even a simple one like, "Want me to pick up dinner?" she'd pause, blink like I'd interrupted something important, then nod absently. We hadn't touched in weeks. She stopped reaching for my hand. Kisses became pecks on the cheek, cold and automatic. She never initiated anything anymore. And when I tried, she'd flinch, pull back with a yawn, say she was too tired. Once I caught her smiling at a text and quickly locking her phone when she realized I'd seen. I didn't say anything then either. I just logged it away. Another piece in the puzzle. Every part of me wanted to believe I was being paranoid. That I was reading too much into late nights and wardrobe changes and silences. That the photo was, in fact, a prank or a harmless joke taken out of context. But even my body stopped believing me. My appetite vanished. I started sleeping on the edge of the bed, leaving a polite gap between us that she never bridged. I began taking walks after dinner, long ones. Through the neighborhood, past the houses with porch lights on and families watching TV through their front windows. I'd wonder if any of those people were living double lives too. Or if it was just me. And then there was that morning. The one that changed everything. Kayla had left early for a supposed strategy brunch. She kissed me goodbye on the cheek, threw on a tan trench coat, and breezed out the door with a travel mug and a to-go container of scones she said were for networking. But she forgot her work tablet on the dining table. It buzzed once, then again. I wouldn't have touched it honestly if not for the fact that the screen lit up with a preview message. "Hey, Baxter, still thinking about last time. Can't believe I get to see you again today. That red dress ruined me." I didn't breathe for a full minute. I tapped the tablet, still unlocked, and the message app expanded. Dozens of texts, all recent. Flirty. An asterisk mate. Personal. Like they shared a world I hadn't been invited into. Most of the contact was from him. But she replied just enough to leave no doubt. She called him Ash. He called her Firecracker. I closed the tablet carefully. Set it back where she left it. When she returned later that afternoon, flushed and humming as she walked through the door, I felt something sharp and final inside me. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I smiled. Asked how the brunch went. "Great," she said, stretching. "Tiring. Too many people talking over each other." "Did you wear the red dress?" I asked casually. She paused mid-step. Her eyes flicked toward me. "What? You said you might wear the red one. Thought it'd make a strong impression." She stared at me for half a second too long. Then smiled. "Oh, yeah. I changed my mind. Went with the navy." I nodded slowly. "Probably better," I said. "The red one's a little loud." She disappeared upstairs and I sat alone at the kitchen table again. Same spot. Same hum from the fridge. But now the puzzle wasn't just in my head, it was on a screen. In text. In color. In words I couldn't unsee. I didn't know what my next move would be. Not yet. But I knew what it wouldn't be. Silence. I booked the flight on a Monday afternoon. No dramatic flair. No storming out. Just an open laptop, a muted browser, and a Southwest confirmation number quietly waiting in my inbox. She told me she'd be in Austin for 3 days, something about a supplier summit, team building, conference panels. She'd even printed an itinerary this time, like she was trying to reassure me preemptively. But I'd seen too much. The tablet. The texts. Ash Baxter. I didn't confront her when she left. I kissed her goodbye at the curb like I always did, helped load her suitcase into the Uber, and waved as the car disappeared down the street. Then I packed a small bag of my own. The flight was short. Austin was loud and muggy, crowded with the kind of artificial energy that conferences always seem to generate. I checked into a modest hotel 5 blocks from the one she'd named. My plan was simple: see it with my own eyes. Prove myself right. Prove myself wrong. Anything but stay in that limbo between. The next morning, I walked into her hotel lobby just after 10 a.m., dressed in neutral tones and a baseball cap pulled low. Not because I was hiding, because I wasn't ready to be seen. I asked the front desk if I could get an extra key to room 834 under Kayla's name. I braced for resistance. Instead, the clerk smiled politely and said, "Certainly, Mr. Wallace." The keycard slid across the counter without hesitation. My hands shook as I rode the elevator. Not from nerves. From inevitability. Room 834 was halfway down the hall. I paused outside the door, keycard in hand, heartbeat loud in my ears. I expected myself to hesitate, to second-guess, to run. I didn't. The lock blinked green. The handle clicked. The door swung open silently. And there she was. Kayla stood by the wide hotel window wearing a pale gray robe tied loosely around her waist. Her hair was slightly damp, clinging to the sides of her neck. In one hand, she held a glass of red wine. Morning sun poured in behind her, highlighting the faint outline of her figure beneath the fabric. She turned at the sound of the door, expecting someone else. Her smile froze. Behind her, by the bed, was the man from the photo, Ash Baxter. Shirtless. Laughing. The laughter stopped when he saw me. Time slowed. For a long moment, no one spoke. There was no panic in Kayla's eyes. No gasps. No stammering excuses. Just a quiet recognition, as if she'd been rehearsing for this scene and finally it arrived. Her hand didn't shake. Her robe didn't move. She didn't rush to explain. Instead, she stepped aside calmly, allowing the full scene to be seen. The bed was unmade. A second wine glass rested on the nightstand. His shoes were by the foot of the bed, hers beside them. A hotel room turned into a secret stage. Ash sat up straighter, clearly unsure whether to stand or run. Kayla spoke first. "How did you know where I'd be?" Her voice was even. Controlled. She took a sip of wine like we were discussing dinner plans. "You told me," I said, my voice just above a whisper. "You always tell me more than you mean to." She sighed through her nose, then nodded almost respectfully. "So this is it?" I glanced around the room. At the crumpled sheets. The robe belt half hanging off a chair. The ghost of perfume lingering in the air. "This is it," I repeated. She looked at Ash. "Can you give us a moment?" He blinked. Now," she added, without looking at him again. He stood awkwardly, pulling a shirt over his head, grabbing his phone and key card. He didn't make eye contact with me. Didn't apologize. Just slipped past me like smoke and vanished into the hallway. Kayla sat on the edge of the bed, crossing one leg over the other. "I guess I don't need to explain, do I?" "No," I said, leaning against the dresser. "You really don't." She stared at the floor for a beat. "I didn't plan for this to happen. Not with him. Not with anyone." "But you chose it," I said. Over and over. She nodded slowly. "Yeah, I did." I wasn't expecting that kind of honesty. Not from her. I wasn't sure whether to feel grateful or destroyed. "I wanted to feel something again," she said, fingers curling around the wine glass. "Something outside of laundry and bills and grocery lists. Something that made me remember who I used to be." I looked at her, at this woman who once danced barefoot in our kitchen on Saturday mornings, who cried at commercials, who'd once written me a love letter on a napkin. Now she was sitting on a stranger's bed in a city she swore was for work, sipping red wine at 10 a.m. "You used to feel things with me," I said. She didn't answer that. "I wasn't enough for you anymore." "It wasn't about you," she said softly. "It was about me. It always was." That line, it was meant to sound like clarity. Like empowerment. But to me, it just sounded like permission. Like an excuse to walk away from every promise we ever made and label it self-discovery. "I'm not here to scream," I said. "Or throw things. Or demand explanations." "Then why are you here?" "To see," I said. "To stop pretending. To stop defending something that no longer exists." We sat in silence for a long time, the kind of silence you don't come back from. "I won't fight you on the divorce," she said eventually. "If that's what you want." "It is," I said, and I meant it. She nodded again, as if she'd been waiting to hear it out loud. As if the game had finally ended. "I'll be back Friday. We can talk logistics then." "No," I said. "You can email me." That made her blink. "You won't come home?" "I'll come back when you're gone." She didn't argue. I turned and walked to the door. Hand on the handle, I looked back once, not because I needed to see her again, but to mark the moment. To burn it into memory. To never forget what truth looked like when it finally stopped hiding. She didn't cry. Neither did I. I didn't tell anyone I was coming home. No calls. No texts. Not even a heads up to my boss. I just drove from the airport in silence, the highway stretching out like a question I no longer had energy to answer. The key felt heavier in the lock than usual. When I opened the door, the familiar creak echoed in a way it never had before. The house looked the same, but nothing felt familiar. Like someone had broken in, rearranged the air, and left before I arrived. It was quiet. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that throbbed. The bedroom was still made. Her side of the bed untouched, the pillow fluffed. Like a museum display of what love used to be. I couldn't step inside. Couldn't even look at it for more than a second. My hand touched the doorknob, but instead of turning it, I let go and walked down the hall. I ended up in the storage room. The space we used to dump holiday decorations, winter coats, boxes labeled miscellaneous. I cleared enough room for a cot. Laid out a thin blanket. No pillow. Just enough space for a body that didn't want to feel like it belonged anywhere. That's where I stayed. I didn't say a word to the kids, though they knew something was wrong. Children always know. They absorb the silence like it's their job. Our daughter peeked into the storage room once, wide-eyed and confused. "Why are you sleeping here, Daddy?" "I just needed some quiet," I told her. She nodded slowly, then walked away, dragging her socked feet along the carpet. The pictures on the wall were unbearable. Family vacations. Birthday parties. Kayla's face smiling from frame after frame like a ghost mocking the living. I couldn't bring myself to take them down. Instead, I stopped looking. Walked past them with my head tilted slightly away. I stopped opening drawers that had her things. Started avoiding the bathroom we used to share. I shaved in the kitchen sink. Brushed my teeth in the downstairs half-bath. I built a routine of absence, moving around her existence like it was radioactive. The kids adapted faster than I did. Our son started spending more time in the garage, fiddling with his bike, than just sitting next to it, staring into space like he was solving a puzzle only he could see. He stopped asking when she'd be back from her trips. Stopped saying her name. Our daughter retreated into her drawings again, but they changed. She used to sketch houses with 4 figures holding hands. Now it was just 3. No explanation. Just the new normal, drawn in crayon. I started cooking again. Nothing fancy. Just enough to fill the silence with something useful. Grilled cheese. Soup from a can. Scrambled eggs. Meals with minimal effort and zero expectations. We ate at the dining table together in a line, our new shape. The kids didn't ask for Kayla. I didn't bring her up. On the 3rd night, our daughter handed me a drawing. It showed a man and 2 children sitting at a table. She had drawn a big heart above them. "Where's Mommy?" I asked softly, though I already knew the answer. She shrugged. "I think she's in the cloud." The cloud. Like my iPad. Stuff goes up there and just stays. I almost laughed. Instead, I nodded and pinned it to the fridge. We stopped waiting for Kayla. No countdowns to her return. No, how many sleeps until Mommy's back? Just early mornings, quiet breakfasts, and the daily dance of pretending everything was okay. I started walking before sunrise. The neighborhood looked different in that gray-blue light, more forgiving somehow. I passed houses with warm kitchens, glowing TVs, dogs barking at squirrels. For those 45 minutes, I didn't think about anything. I just walked, each step like an eraser against memory. I didn't tell anyone what happened. Not my parents. Not my sister. Not the guys at work. If anyone asked, I said Kayla was traveling a lot for work and we were just managing as best we could. That was true in the shallowest sense. At night, I lay on the cot with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling where spiderweb cracks traced along the drywall. I counted them. 1, 2, 5. A distraction from the way her name still sounded in my head, Kayla. Soft. Familiar. Ruined. The day she returned, it wasn't dramatic. The front door opened quietly in the late afternoon. She stepped in holding a grocery store bouquet and a reusable bag. She didn't call out. Just walked through the hall like a visitor in someone else's house. When she saw me, her face held a practiced softness, eyebrows slightly raised, lips parted in tentative peace. "Hi," she said. I didn't respond. She extended the flowers toward me. Lilies. Her favorite. Not mine. A detail she either forgot or ignored. "For the table," she added. I pointed down the hallway toward the guest room. No words. Just a direction. She hesitated for a second, then nodded and walked away. Later, I heard her in the room, unpacking. The zipper of a suitcase. The creak of a mattress she hadn't used in years. The door clicked shut behind her like punctuation. That night, she came to the kitchen while I was washing dishes. "We need to talk," she said. I didn't turn around. Just kept scrubbing the plate. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know that means nothing right now. But I need you to know it." I set the plate down, finally facing her. She looked tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep could fix. The kind that comes from carrying too many lies for too long. "I didn't do it because I stopped loving you," she continued. "I did it because I forgot how to feel anything." I didn't speak. Just watched her. "I felt invisible," she added. Like I was drowning in the same day over and over. Wake up, emails, kids, dinner, sleep. I needed something to break it. "And you picked him," I said. My voice surprised me, low, flat, unshaken. "I picked escape," she replied. "He was just..." The door I opened. I pulled a folded paper from my back pocket. A new calendar I had printed that morning. 2 columns. One for her. One for me. Color-coded for school pickups, drop-offs, dance classes, dentist appointments. "This is yours," I said, placing it on the counter. "And your house key." She didn't touch them, just stared. I'm not going to fight with you, I said. The kids deserve better than that. But I can't do this version of life anymore. A long pause. Then, quietly, you're right. That night, I heard her crying behind the guest room door. Not loud, not theatrical, just the kind of sobbing people do when they finally understand what they've lost. But it didn't reach me. Not anymore. The part of me that used to ache when she cried, the part that jumped to fix things, to soften, to fold, was gone. What remained was a man with a drawer full of unused pillowcases and a heart that had quietly gone offline. She stayed in the guest room. At first, I thought it would be temporary. Maybe a few nights until the weight of reality settled into her bones. But as the days passed, it became obvious. She intended to reclaim space without asking for permission. She moved with caution, yes, but also with an odd confidence, like she believed her presence still had currency. On Monday morning, she appeared in the kitchen at 6:45, wearing her usual blazer and slacks, coffee already in hand. "Good morning," she offered, like we hadn't burned to the ground. I nodded once and continued buttering toast. She cleared her throat. "I can take them today, drop off and pick up." I slid the lunchboxes across the counter without looking up. She took them and left. That was the first moment of our new routine. Cold, efficient, transactional. Our entire history condensed into an exchange of Tupperware and avoidance. The kids were skeptical. Our daughter asked first, "Why is Mommy sleeping in the other room?" I paused, wiping down the kitchen counter. Sometimes grown-ups need space. Just like when you and your brother argue. She frowned. But no one was yelling. Exactly. Our son didn't ask questions. He just became more silent. Not angry, withdrawn. He stopped leaving things on the table that might remind him of her. Toys she bought. Notes she used to scribble on his lunch napkins. Gone. As if he was clearing the stage for a play no longer being performed. Kayla tried. I'll give her that. She cooked one night lemon chicken and rosemary potatoes, her old favorite. The kids were polite. I ate silently. When she asked if we wanted dessert, our daughter said, "We only like Daddy's brownies now." That stung. For her. Not for me. The next morning, Kayla cornered me in the hallway. She had that tight-lipped expression of someone bracing for a monologue. "I know I have no right to ask you for anything," she began. "But I need to say it anyway." I waited. "I didn't expect to be forgiven," she said. "But I thought maybe I'd be allowed to try. Not to undo what happened. Just to rebuild something that still matters." "What exactly are you hoping to rebuild?" I asked, not unkindly. She hesitated. "Trust. Connection. A version of us that still works." "Trust doesn't work like that," I said. "It doesn't return just because you regret losing it." "I don't want to be shut out completely." I nodded slowly. "Then maybe you should have thought of that before choosing someone else's lap over our life." That was the last real conversation we had for a while. She took the guest room calendar seriously, I'll say that. School runs, practice pickups, parent-teacher check-ins. She showed up for them. On time. Well-dressed. Presentable. But she was no longer part of the rhythm. The inside jokes. The half-finished sentences I shared with the kids that she didn't understand. Dinners were quieter. Our daughter started drawing again, always handing the new ones to me. Our son taught me how to use the smart TV remote to skip YouTube ads. Something Kayla had never bothered to learn. I found comfort in small rituals. Saturday morning pancakes. Board game nights. Folding laundry while watching old sitcoms with the kids. Life didn't feel full again, but it was stable. Predictable. Kayla kept trying to reinsert herself. She showed up with new toys. A handmade coupon book for family fun days. She asked if we wanted to plan a weekend trip, maybe to the mountains, like the old days. The kids said no. She asked if I wanted to talk, to maybe meet with someone, a counselor, pastor, a friend. I said no. She left her laptop open on the kitchen counter one evening, deliberately or not. The screen displayed an article, How to Rebuild After Infidelity, a step-by-step guide. I didn't click it, just closed the lid and moved on. One night, I found her standing in the hallway, facing our bedroom door. She didn't go in. She just stood there for a long time, one hand resting on the doorknob like she was asking for permission from the silence. I walked past her without a word. That Friday, she brought home flowers again. Peonies this time, my favorite. She placed them in a mason jar and left them in the center of the dining table. I let them sit there for a day before moving them to the windowsill in the garage. She noticed. Didn't mention it. But that evening I heard her crying again. Not behind a closed door. Not muffled. From the guest room, clear and heavy. Not the sobs of someone wanting attention. Just a quiet breaking. I sat on the couch, eyes on the wall, unmoved. The next day, she came into the living room while I was helping our son with a science project. She was holding a manila folder. "These are the forms," she said. "For the apartment. The lease starts next week." I didn't say anything. "There's also a shared calendar link," she added. "I scheduled some basics, but we can adjust." Our son looked up from the glue stick. "What kind of apartment?" She crouched next to him, her voice soft. "A place I'll stay during the week. I'll still see you on the days marked purple." "Why are they purple?" "Because it's your favorite color," she smiled. He didn't smile back. She stood. Met my eyes. "I'll go pack some things." I nodded. She left the room, and for the first time in weeks, I let myself exhale. That night, I boiled pasta for the kids. We watched a movie about a lost dog who finds his way home. Our daughter cried. Our son rolled his eyes, but I saw him wipe his face when he thought I wasn't looking. Kayla didn't come to say goodnight. The guest room door stayed closed. When I checked on the kids after they fell asleep, I found a sticky note on my son's dresser. It read, "Daddy stays." That's how I know I'm safe. I sat on the edge of his bed for a long time. Not sad. Not angry. Just certain. The next morning, I helped Kayla carry boxes to her car. She didn't say much. Just loaded things with quiet determination. We didn't argue. Didn't hug. Didn't pretend we were something we weren't. As she closed the trunk, she looked at me for a long moment. "I know it's too late to be what I should have been," she said. "But I still want to be something. For them. For myself." I nodded. "I hope you find what you're looking for," I said. She blinked, lips parting as if to say more, then closed them. She got in the car, started the engine, and pulled away. I watched the taillights disappear down the street. Then I went inside, washed the breakfast dishes, and moved her calendar to the fridge. Not as a peace offering. As a boundary. After Kayla moved out, the house didn't erupt, it simply exhaled. There wasn't an immediate sense of freedom or triumph. It felt more like gravity returned, heavy and unrelenting. She wasn't slamming doors or arguing anymore. But her absence wasn't peaceful, it was just a different kind of noise. One you felt in the way the couch dipped less. The way the air didn't carry perfume or distant phone calls. The children responded in different ways. Our daughter asked questions. Straightforward ones that left no room to escape. "Does Mommy live with us now?" "No," I said gently. "She lives close by and she'll still see you. Just not every day." "But you're not mad at her?" I paused. "I'm not loud mad. I'm just moving on." She seemed to understand that. Maybe better than I did. Our son shut down. Not dramatically. Not angrily. Just quietly. He didn't argue when she visited, but he never lingered. When Kayla showed up for her scheduled days, he slipped out of the room. No hugs. No eye contact. Just a ghost in his own home. She tried to break through, inviting him out for lunch, offering to help with homework. He gave short answers and never fought. He simply removed himself. It was the cleanest form of rejection I'd ever seen. She told me one night, "I think I lost him." I didn't correct her. You don't lose a child like you lose a sock. It happens in tiny pieces when you stop showing up, when you choose someone else's warmth over their trust. Eventually, the bond fades into memory. I stepped up because I had to. Not to win them over. Not to replace her. Just because the weight of 2 lives landed on my shoulders the moment she walked out with that last box. I packed lunches. Learned how to braid our daughter's hair. Fixed the chain on our son's bike. I scheduled doctor appointments, attended parent nights, and remembered to send in field trip forms. I did it without fanfare. Without applause. Because that's what parenting is, doing the quiet work even when everything else has fallen apart. Kayla, to her credit, didn't interfere. But she didn't connect either. Her visits became ritualistic. Pickups and drop-offs with rehearsed smiles and "How was school?" She was still physically present. But emotionally? That door had closed. I watched the 3 of us settle into a rhythm again. Not perfect, but honest. That mattered more. Kayla moved into a furnished apartment on the edge of town. It was quiet, beige, full of placeholder furniture and motivational wall art. She tried to make it feel like home, but it didn't take. It wasn't lived in, it was waited in. The divorce moved quickly. There were no shouting matches or contested hearings. Just signatures, custody agreements, and a judge who glanced at us like we were another pair in a long line of heartbreaks. In the end, she took less than she was entitled to. I don't know if it was guilt or exhaustion. A few weeks later, someone forwarded me a video clip from her company's holiday banquet. Kayla was on stage with a mic, clearly buzzed. She cracked a joke about her ex-husband me, saying something about how I couldn't keep up with her ambition or her heels. Laughter followed. My stomach didn't twist. I didn't feel rage, just a quiet sadness. That's how she remembered us, a punchline. A month after that, our son spotted her at the social services office downtown. She was holding a clipboard, trying not to be seen. He didn't wave, didn't approach, just got back in my truck and said, "I saw her. That okay?" I asked. He shrugged. She looked different, smaller. I didn't know what to say. He wasn't wrong. Back at home, I boiled water for tea, set 3 mugs out, pulled out the old storybook we used to read together, back when everything made sense. They nestled beside me on the couch, our daughter already flipping to her favorite chapter. And as I read, I noticed the light coming through the window, the soft gold of early evening. The wedding ring I used to wear was now tucked into a teacup on the sill. Not thrown away, not hidden, just retired. The family wasn't whole anymore, but for the first time in a long time it was real, honest, enough.